working with this, how difficult it can be for people to get back to work, to have losses while they're at work and being professionally active, also when they're not. But, the focus of this is grief in the workplace. So I made it an agenda. I thought that would make it much easier. So this is the stuff that I'll be covering. You're all smart people. You know that this is the welcome and the introduction bit. And in addition to that, we'll be talking about understanding grief beyond death, because so many other things can cause that feeling of grief. What happens when grief meets work? How do we show up physically, emotionally, and mentally at work following a loss? The hidden cost of ignoring grief. What are the ramifications for you? How would it be great if we were met by our leaders, by our colleagues when we're grieving? Why we need better grief policies. And then finally, we have questions and comments. After each segment, I will be taking questions in case you have any. Just FYI, I will not be seeing the chat because honestly, I have so much other stuff to look at, but I'm sure Paulina will be helpful here. Great, thanks. So I'm going to dive straight into it. When we talk about grief, we usually and typically think about death. But in actual fact, there are way more than 40 life events as such that can cause that sense of loss. Death of a loved one is only one of them. Other examples could be divorce, moving, getting fired, losing a pet, alienation, serious illnesses, your own and that of others. Also, losing the high for recovering addicts is a loss. Being adopted and so forth and so forth. So it's not necessarily about the actual loss itself. It's about the emotions associated with the loss. Those emotions will always be individual and always depend on the relationship we had with those or that which we lost. And even if our hearts are broken, there's still the reality that we have to pay the rent and put food on the table. So we have to work. And how we look at that will be very individual. For some people, going to work can be a welcome break, from the pain and the silence at home. It's where you can put another hat on, so to speak. And for some, it's excruciating, because they feel lost and have what is called grief brain. Grief brain is a well-known phenomenon which basically slows down the brain and makes it difficult for the brain to function. Generally speaking, it feels like, and that's my expression, thinking through porridge. Imagine that it's slow, it's distorted, and it's neither what you expect nor what you want. Nor is it what your boss or colleagues recognize in you. And it adds further to the sense of feeling isolated and lost, which is so common in grievers. But grief brain isn't all. It's quite common to have an increased number of sick days when you're grieving. About 40% of us will have that when we're grieving. I'll get back to some of the reasons in a moment. Also, feeling isolated, outside, different is also very normal consequences of having suffered one or more losses. And the comments from others like, I know just how you feel, they're not helping because they don't. It's always an individual experience. They will have certain emotions attached to their losses, and no two people have the same, not even if it's the same relationship or the same person if it's a person that they've lost. As I mentioned, grieving is a physical and not just emotional experience. You will have, or usually or often have, more sick days. This is not generally known, I find, in the general public or thought about, but it's completely normal that you have a series of physical responses to your emotional pain. So the pain can manifest in different ways. You can have stomach aches, super normal, often because of unconscious tension. Your whole life has taken a turn for the worse. Who wouldn't tense up? You can have achy joints, night and morning sweats, headaches, pain in the jaw and the teeth, again because of tension, heart pounding. You can be super sensitive to light, sound, smells, movements. Fatigue. Fatigue is very normal following a loss. You're just too tired for words. And many other things. So, what we're often met with in conversations following your loss will be the facts of the loss, what I call the brain language. We are met with thoughts, data, probabilities, and a lot of other stuff that is what I call, just generally called, intellectually correct and emotionally useless information. When our hearts are broken and we're in emotional pain, we fundamentally don't need to talk about death statistics or the fact that we knew for a long time what was coming or other brain-related stuff. What we need, and it's super simple, is to have the space to feel what we feel and to be with people who don't withdraw because of it. Think of a sentence such as, "Oh, you'd probably rather be alone," or "I can see that you're upset. Think about something else really quickly, just to take your mind off things." Or all kinds of other comments that are essentially about the non-griever's discomfort with displays of negative emotion. Nothing feels safer or better than to be able to just be miserable as you are with someone who's not afraid to be in it or who's willing to meet you in that space. That is compassion. That they don't take on the griever's emotion, but allow for grievers to feel just what they feel. No judgment, no distraction. And if you're not able to do that, and this is not meant in a bad way, perhaps it's better that they're with someone else because they need to feel safe. So another often not known thing about grief is that it's cumulative. You bring the pain from the last loss with you to the next one. You build grief on top of grief unless you do something to reduce the amount of it. I often compare it to if you have a glass that's full of water, at some point it'll spill over. It's the same thing. Goes for stress as well, by the way, but that's another story. We can do what I would say is okay for a number of losses. It's individual, how many losses you can take before you break. We have no idea until we're in this situation and it all comes crumbling down. I had a lovely GP at one point who knew I did this work. And she would tell me about this one patient she had who, in her words, handled the death of his wife so well, by which she meant he acted completely as usual. So, she couldn't see in him that he'd had a massive loss. And then the man's budgie died a few months later, and he broke. And my sweet GP really couldn't understand how he could have that many emotions for his budgie and not for his wife. But it was never about the budgie. It was about the bird dying, which was sort of the final straw, the thing that's, made the water spill over in the glass. What questions do you have at this point before I move on? If any, you may not.
There are no questions in the chat just yet.
Cool.
If you still think of some questions related to this section, please, please, please don't hesitate to put them in the chat. We will get back to them at the end.
Thank you, Paulina. I shall move on. So when we think about the workplace, there we go. Our workplaces tend to focus on accuracy, on precision, on performance, on key performance indicators, and none of that really fits with the human condition of grief. The first thing that the griever usually meets is this: complete and utter silence. Now try and get what's the worst thing you can say to someone who's grieving. Nothing. The assumption tends to be that they would rather not be reminded of their loss. But in reality, it's about ours, yours, mine, discomfort to talk about anything that has a negative emotion, and grief is a negative emotion. So even though you can't make it worse, there's one way in which you can really, really quickly show that you're not safe to be with. Is when you voice your opinion about their loss. I've heard people laughing at losses because it wouldn't represent the loss to themselves, or they thought it was ridiculous. I've had clients feel embarrassed about their emotions because others judge their losses as insignificant, ridiculous, or even something positive. Your opinion about a loss does not matter or help. All it does is create a distance to the griever who already feels alone and possibly lost in the world. When a griever will have their loss being judged and possibly found too little or unimportant, they clam up. They're already finding it difficult to recognize themselves, what with all the stuff that's going on around them in their heart, in their head, in their body, and possibly also physically around them. You judging their loss just confirms to them that there's something wrong with them, that they should feel shameful about what they feel. And the thing is, we feel what we feel. There's not a shred of rationality behind, what we feel. We just feel. The only way to get rid of it, if you will, is to acknowledge it and work on it. You cannot feel or use your brain to get rid of those feelings. Sorry, you cannot not feel and use your brain to get rid of feelings. You can distract yourself, but trust me, it will come back. We feel what we feel because we are normally functioning human beings. Since no two people have identical emotions or physical responses to grief or bereavement, it's important that the workplace is able to consider the individual needs and abilities with their employees. Quick question here. Are you in a room with somebody else right now? Or are there people sitting around you? If so, take a look around and know that 1 out of 10 will be so affected by a loss that it's affecting their performance. That loss may be recent, it may be from a long time ago. That they're not performing as they could, as their potential would allow because they've suffered a loss. It dampens your ability to be in the world. You may not know about it. You may even always have seen this person as perhaps fired or whatever. But 1 out of 10 will be hurting, suffering from a loss at the moment in a way that is affecting their performance. In my country, which is Denmark, in case you're wondering, there was a study that showed that 73% of people don't tell their leaders that they've suffered losses because they're afraid that they could be fired, because they know full well that they're not okay. And they're not telling the very people they spend a lot of time with every day because they fear negative reactions. Isn't that sad? Again, if you have questions, this is a time where I would welcome them. Paulina, thumbs up, thumbs down?
No questions so far.
Cool. I will move on. So some try and succeed perhaps for a period of time to ignore their own grief and their own pain. And it comes at a cost. Here are some numbers. It's been shown that 90% of craftsmen, such as carpenters, bricklayers, etc., have more accidents when they're grieving. Try and imagine a carpenter dropping a hammer from a roof. What could happen if someone was hit by it? Try and imagine the carpenter himself missing a step and falling down. Try and imagine that his attention to detail is gone. What could happen to that house? Also, a group of top leaders or CEOs were asked about their performance following a loss. 85% of them reported that the loss had affected their ability to make good decisions. Now, we are talking about, in this instance, of stuff that will affect many, many people and cost a lot of money. A third example, did you know that when business owners have a loss, the turnover in their company will drop by 20 to 25% the following year? That's a lot of money, potentially, depending on the size of the business, of course. That's a lot of people being affected by it, even without knowing about the loss itself. That is also why investing in people's grief recovery is a great business case. When they're ready for it, not before, when they're ready for it. And that is individual too. I've had people come to me 2 weeks after a major loss. I have some people come to me 40 years later. Um, it differs. We're all different. Any questions? Because I saw there was a sort of something that popped up at some point.
It's not a question, it's more
Good.
so an amazing, really lovely comment saying, honestly, Meta, I have no questions because you're so clear and informative. This is really good. Thank you. So I think that's the notion.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
There is a question that just
Yeah,
popped saying, how can I know when it's time for grief recovery?
you feel it. You know with yourself. Just the fact that you're asking could be an indicator. So, and I'll have my contact details at the end of this. Please feel free to reach out for a free call, but I'll get to that later. So the next topic here is how to return to work after loss. And honestly, it's not necessarily for the faint-hearted. It's a lot of work in itself. As I mentioned previously, it's very individual what we feel about returning to work after a big loss. Some resume work as if nothing's happened, and for some it works out really nicely. For others, they're pretending to be strong. And strong in this context usually means that people are not able to detect from the behavior that they had a loss. It's a coping mechanism, and long term, it's not great. I'll get back to that later. Now, try and imagine that your heart is broken, your brain is churning over and over with your loss, and you may have one or more of the following: difficulty to focus on the task, frequently feeling miserable, having aches and pains, being unstable and feel about crying, every 5 minutes. You have no energy, and in order to survive the whole thing, you numb out. How does going back to work sound in that situation? How does it sound if your colleagues are uncomfortable talking to you about your loss and your boss will do their best to give you the most tedious tasks to take care of you? Not that they had a conversation with you, they just do that. And that is what the majority are met with. Is that kind? Is that compassionate? Not really. And as I mentioned earlier, it's not because they're bad people. They're lovely people. They just feel awkward with your negative emotions. Why? Because it reminds them of their own. Um, Remember when we were children and we might have been told to go back to our room and only come out when we were in a good mood, or when we were tired and sad and had a fit? Of course, you didn't, but I saw someone who did. Could have been me, not saying. Um, anyway, we were told that we were being hysterical. That same voice can be found in the heads of adults who are grieving, so they don't say anything. Yes, it's perfectly clear that something's off or has changed. I've met many, many people who have either quit their jobs because of grief or have worked themselves into severe stress reactions when trying to keep up with the illusion that everything was fine. And that's why the standard response from grievers when asked how it's going, that will be fine, with sort of a sort of weird, very pleasant, but not too intense smile. They're not fine. They just don't know either how to respond or how you'll react to the real answer. So they isolate themselves further. Many have described it as being in a bell jar where you can see and hear what's going on out there, but they're just not part of it. I had the great honor at one point of being with someone, I've been with a few actually, who, when the bell jar fell away, I mean, you could literally hear it sort of falling to pieces on the floor. He had been in that for about 50 years, and he said it felt like he was seeing colors for the first time, that he felt alive again. And that was awe-inspiring. One of the more, I think, detrimental consequences of people denying their own emotional pain is the long-term effect of low self-worth. Because when you've denied your own emotions for years, or when you've pretended and lived on like they weren't there or that they didn't matter, then you've trained yourself that what you feel doesn't matter, that you cannot rely on your own judgment because it doesn't matter. That breeds low self-worth. I've often seen this when people suffered big losses in their childhood or when they were teenagers and there was nobody to talk about it, or they were told not to talk about it. When you're low on energy and your brain isn't what it used to be, and you find it difficult to focus and you may have many sick days, how do you think that might affect your career? The answer is negatively, in case you're wondering. I've had clients whose leaders told them, not asked them, told them that they surely should be over that by now. Usually that would be about a 3-month thing, 3 months in. So then we have no compassion, no understanding, an unsafe space, and judgment. Brilliant. Sarcasm, by the way. So it varies how people have responded. Some have quit, some have hung in there, and some have been fired. Mind you, all of that for having a completely normal human reaction, have normal human emotions, and for responding to something bad in a completely normal manner. What do you think happens to their career path after that? Would they get that coveted promotion? Would they get that raise that they deserve? Would they get those interesting high profile tasks? Usually not. Sometimes their leaders lose patience with them and order them to move on. Move on in life. But you can't order people to move on and work with emotions. That's not how it works. Sometimes these people have burnout because it all becomes too much for them and their bodies. Stress affects your body in addition to your mind. So now they have both. Whenever I have those clients, we focus on dealing with the stress first because the body needs to calm down before we can work on the emotions. So a consequence of a big loss that you don't process and work on can be that your career and consequently your long-term income will suffer. That was a lot of bad news. I'm sorry, but I'm coming to what you can do about it, so don't worry. But are there any questions at this point?
They are. They are.
Good.
So, someone asking in the chat, I have a family member who's terminally ill and has only weeks, maybe months to live.
Mm,
Though they're still alive today, I feel I'm grieving ahead of their deaths,
yes.
which makes me feel awful. Is this normal?
Completely and utterly, completely normal. And when this person dies, and I'm sorry to hear that, you might also feel relief and don't feel bad about that, honestly. There's always contradicting emotions going on when we're talking about grief. And what you're feeling is normal, and you might think, I should be happy I'm not the one who's ill. No, but your heart is already feeling the pain. So it's completely normal. Thank you for that question. That was a good one. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And there is a second question as well. The numbness associated with grief is that a breakdown waiting to happen or a sign of recovery?
The numbness,
Mhm. Associated with grief, sorry.
it's taking a temporary break, but it'll still be there. And if you do it too much, it's not good for you. Talking about your pain, your emotions, the loss of everything involved with that is very good for you. It's not necessarily pleasant, um, but it's what it takes. And I'm actually doing that after this webinar with someone. So it's what I do. Thank you. I hope that was helpful. Maybe not what you wanted to hear, but there you have it. So
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone who shared their experiences in the chat
yes,
so far. It's very, very, very important, I think.
yes. I'm going to move on, and you will like this next step because now it's getting actionable. We're coming to what you may have been waiting for, what you can actually do. I have advice for the leader, I have advice for the griever, and I have advice for the colleagues. So one of the first things that a griever meets is someone who will offer their condolences, which is super kind. And often we're just saying, condolences and that's it. If you want to say a little bit more, here are some things you can say. I was sorry to hear about your whatever that relation was. I can't imagine what you're going through, but I want you to know I'm thinking of you. It acknowledges the loss, it expresses empathy, and you're not going into the cliche world. Grievers meet a lot of cliches. I haven't brought any today, but they are plentiful. There's so many of them. Also, there are no perfect words, but I just want you to know I see your pain and I'm here if you need someone to listen now or later. And then be there, by the way. It doesn't try to fix the grief. You don't need to fix grievers. There's nothing wrong with them. They're having a completely normal reaction. But it doesn't try to minimize it either. And it offers support, but no pressure. You and your whoever it was had a special bond, if you knew that to be fact. I remember you once told me, and then tell a nice little story that you remember. It brings the deceased, if it's someone who died, into the conversation, which most grievers appreciate because the majority of people they talk to are trying to avoid that topic. I know words can feel empty right now, but I want you to know that you're not alone in this. I'm holding space for you. You're not pretending that you're feeling their exact loss because you're not, but you will hold that space for them. You're making yourself a safe space. So you want to keep it about them, not about you or your reaction. I can see I need to move a little bit here. There you go. So you want to make sure that it's about them and not how you feel or respond to the loss. Because if you have too strong reactions on that, the grievers will tend to focus on you and making you feel more comfortable, which is not your idea in all of this. So there's stuff to be mindful of. One thing is you cannot make grievers more sad by mentioning what or who they lost. I mean, you can't change that. You will not be reminding them of their loss because they haven't forgotten. This one is quite important. This is also important. People are different and will react differently. Some will cry, some won't. Some will act like normal. Some will be like zombies. We are all different, and any reaction that people have on a loss is normal. The only thing that you are required to do is to hold the space, not fix, not comfort. Comforting doesn't help because it's really because you want people just to be back to normal again. So it doesn't help. Just be there. Offer quite specific help. Don't say, give me a call because they won't. Say, I'll come round with dinner, or I'll go vacuum your house, or I'll do your laundry, or why don't I drive your kids tomorrow? Come with specific help. And please do remember to mention the name of the person if it's someone who died or left or whatever, or if you have fond memories, please share them. Generally, people tend not to mention the person or pet because let's not forget that pets are family members. They just tend to have more legs and more fur, but they tend not to mention it or whatever it is. And it's a nice to know that they were in this world, or they were in my life. It could be an ex-husband who left. He's still part of this person's memory. So what should the leader do? The good leader. Here are 5 things that I think would be helpful for the griever. Acknowledge the loss. Have a private conversation to express your condolences and that you're sad about it, and acknowledge the loss. Respect their privacy by allowing them to share details at whichever level of comfort that they have. I have advice to the griever later, don't share everything to everybody because this is a professional relationship after all. Offer flexible work arrangements because they might be able to work full-time one week and absolutely not the next week. And yes, it would be great if you knew what you could count on, but you can't, not in this instance. Discuss options. Would remote work, partially all the time work for them? Would a phased return be helpful? Understand that their energy, their moods, their ability to perform will go up and down and up and up and down for a long time. Um, so try and be flexible, um, and yeah, show that you're doing your best as well in that regard. Maintain an open and ongoing conversation. Have regular check-ins with the people to hear how it's going. Um, what do you need to adjust in the workload? What about the tasks? Would you need to change some of those? Um, Listen actively, be patient, have them express their concerns and needs. Notice if they're distressed and offer support proactively. Um, Consistent contact and communication ensures that the employee feels supported and valued. Foster a compassionate team environment. You don't do that overnight. You do that by long-term example. Um, but that's part of making sure that people feel safe to return. Provide access to support resources. Um, Inform them that, for instance, Cara Connect does have these resources available. Me and others, of course. Don't put any pressure on people to do that, because some will be ready now, some will be ready in 3 years' time. It varies, but just let them know that the support is there. Um, yeah, so that was a leader. Then I have some advice for the colleague, because it can be difficult to be a colleague as well in this. Again, acknowledge the loss. Simply, sincerely, you don't have to go into great detail. Um, I'm so sorry to hear about it. I've been thinking about you. Doesn't have to be a lot. Don't try to give advice. Don't try and cheer them up. Don't tell them, oh, that you know how they feel, because you don't. Um, don't pretend nothing's happened, because silence feels like neglect. So just acknowledge there's been a loss. Let the griever set the tone. Maybe they want to talk, maybe they don't want to talk. Some may want to share, some may not. Don't press for details, or if they're in that mood, tell what was that, or tell me about, when you did so and so. I'm here if you want to talk, and then be there when they want to talk. Be patient with their mood and their focus. It'll go up and down and up and down. They will probably have difficulties remembering stuff that you had agreed, stuff that they are used to doing in their work. Be helpful. It's normal. It's a physiological thing that happens to the brain. There's a grief brain I told you about, and it can be difficult to remember even the most mundane of stuff. Include them gently. Have them come for lunch, invite them, have them come for coffee breaks. They may need a little nudging, but only a little. Be gentle. Grievers tend to isolate, and they're still part of a social thingy that goes on at work. And that sometimes it's nice for them to withdraw, at other times they'd like to be included. Sometimes they will come and then they'll leave early. So what? It's fine. Support without trying to fix. Again, grievers do not need to be fixed. There's nothing wrong with them. They're completely normal. They're just sad. You can't solve it, but you can be there with them in it. Avoid phrases like, at least they're in a better place. You don't know. Or my all-time favorite, time heals all wounds. Not. Um, say it sounds really hard. It sounds tough. I can't imagine how that feels. Just being calm and matter of factual about it. Just be supportive. As a griever, when you come back to work, um, plan a gentle re-entry. Maybe it's great for you to go to work. Maybe it's a bit stressful thinking about it. Have a flexible schedule. Maybe start with shorter days. Maybe start with midweek. Try and have good, frequent communication with your leader, because you will need that, about both, expectations and what you can or cannot do. It is super important in this instance that you have a leader who listens. If you don't, you will have to set the terms for yourself. You need to take care of yourself because you're not, um, you're acting completely normally and it can be difficult. Choose what to share and who you want to share it with. You don't have to explain anything. People might really be, want to hear all the details. That's with them, not with you. You don't have to oblige. You could say stuff like, I'm back, I'm still adjusting, I'm doing my best, just so you know. Not oversharing stuff. Set boundaries about what you're comfortable discussing. There will be some where you're comfortable discussing stuff, there will be some where you're less comfortable. For now, it's okay to expect less for yourself. You can't concentrate as well. You have less energy than usual. Be realistic about what you can do, your to-do list, and you don't hold back on asking for help. It's super easy for me to say that. Um, I hope you have colleagues who will offer help because it can be difficult to ask for. Take short breaks, go for little 5-minute walks. Just take care of yourself. Find that one trusted person at work that you feel safe letting them know what it's like for you. You may want also to have a buffer, someone who can go in between stuff. And then honestly, pat yourself on the back for showing up. Your life is turned upside down. Your body is not responding the way you're used to, and you're going to work. Well done, you, because it's difficult. So, questions, if any.
There are some indeed.
Okay.
Um, so there is a very good question in the chat. What do you mean by if you need to talk, I'm here and then be here for them? What
I
does
mean, yeah,
there's a continuation to the question. What
sorry.
does it mean in practice to be there for them? Because I have been feeling that I have been there, but turned out I wasn't.
So you were there, but you weren't in the sense that you were not mentally present. And you wouldn't know that, Paulina, I know. So the thing about grievers is that they will get a lot of just call me, and they don't because it's too much. They won't do it. Should they want to talk? And they may not, but should they want to, it's just super important that you're there to listen because otherwise you're just another closed door. You're another unsafe space. Um, I've sometimes had people call me on as a professional Sunday afternoon wanting to talk, and I have managed so far to get them into working hours. And of course, I value my life and I need to take care of myself, and this is not about me. But if you're a colleague and someone wants to talk, it's good for them, it's good for your relationship if you can take that time. And sometimes you can just say, sure, but I need to postpone this meeting or I just need to do something and then I'll be with you because you have a life as well. Um, but be that safe space. I hope that answered the question. I'm not sure.
And there is the second question from the same person
Mm.
saying, what are the main feelings grief causes? Is it stress or anxiety or something else?
All of the above that you can think of. I mean, you can have so many emotions, and often it's just about a million emotions exploding at the same time, and you just don't have the space for them in your body, and it just takes over everything. Some will feel anxiety, some will feel stress, some will feel profound sadness, some will feel anything you can imagine will be I wouldn't say blown up, but there can be any emotion. You cannot say this is what it's like, bam, and place it in a box. Sadly, not how it works. Um,
And there is another question that came in through. Is it common to still feel a hole in your heart even years after losing someone? Some days it feels like that space has closed over, and other times it feels wide open again. Is this normal?
Completely. And it's what I usually hear from my clients. Yes, it's normal because you haven't processed it, you haven't dealt with it. There, you will always, yeah, it's normal. It's normal. And it doesn't have to be that way. Uh, But it is not unusual at all. So thank you. Thank you for asking that super vulnerable and personal question. Thank you so much.
There is another one.
Yep.
As a colleague, how to protect yourself from the heaviness of a loss? How to be supportive without taking on the burden?
Be mindful that it's not your loss. Having said that, we are different as people. Some will, and don't take this the wrong way, please, but some are like little sponges where they sort of feel the emotions of others. In that case, maybe you should try and protect yourself a little bit. I feel super fortunate because I have like a membrane. I don't take on these emotions. The minute I did, I would not be doing what I'm doing. So I do hear you, and it's okay to take care of yourself first. You don't have to be there 100% all the time. And if it gets difficult for you, take care of yourself. And it's okay to say, I need to pause a bit. I can feel it. Or you can feel your own sad emotions coming up. Take care of yourself first.
Questions are keep coming.
Okay.
How can we see and understand our own emotions in the moment? Sometimes it's not possible to know how I'm feeling, but it's not good feeling.
Yeah. What was the first line? How can I feel? How can I?
How can we see and understand our own emotions in the moment?
One way of doing it is journaling. Write them down. Even if there's no nice order or anything, have a little journal, write it down. It's a way of getting it out of your head and out of your heart down on paper. That can help in the moment. Never mind whether it's the right words you're using. Um, Eventually, it probably will be, because at that point you're sort of using words to describe your emotions. That's what it's about. So you can do that, and also know it'll pass. It's not. It won't be that. It'll come and go in waves. It'll be terrible one moment. It'll be okay the next. And the moments can be 5 minutes, 30 seconds, or 4 hours, or longer. But it comes and goes in waves. Yeah,
Thank you so much.
cool. I will move on. So there is a need for us to take grief seriously, also in the workplace. Increasingly, companies are valued, or organizations are valued by potential employees and how they take care of people. Having a compassionate grief policy would be one of those measures. Sorry. It would also make sure that the matter was treated consistently throughout the organization, as well as reducing the taboo around grief, which will and has happened to all of us. It's so interesting because most organizations will have policies for sexism, for alcoholism, for other stuff that might happen if you smoke, whatever, stuff that might happen in your life. But only a very, very small number will have grief policies that concern themselves with the grievers rather than the facts about the grievers, days off for funerals and when to send flowers and all of that. But the thing about grief, it happens to all of us. That's a dead cert. We may not all be alcoholics or smokers or whatever, but we will all at some point be grievers. In my country, they'll often be offered to go to see a therapist or a psychologist, and that can be great. But they're usually dealing with that one loss when you need to look at many other things, like all the losses that came before that one, which is the reason that you're here. Again, look up Care Connect if you're connected, if your company is connected with Care Connect. Many forget that a divorce, a breakup, a dog dying, a friend moving to Australia, and so much more can be losses that cause broken hearts. And the company policies will usually be about deaths in the near family. So talk about judgment in that case. Of course, life and work has to go on. And of course, the griever still has to perform, at a certain level at work. But there are times in our lives when we are physically and emotionally less able to perform. Because we are people, we are not robots. And you can have those conversations with kindness, with compassion, with a safe space. And they need to learn how to do it. So I train people in HR in doing this sort of thing. It is my great privilege to state, quite calmly and confidently that I offer and have done so for years, specialized help for grievers. It's been proven, it's structured, it's based on the individual losses, it's not a general thing. It helps and it makes a difference. It has a high success rate and it works quite well online. I have more than 50, probably more than 70% of my grief clients are online, some very far away, several time zones away. It's worked quite nicely, which I'm super relieved about. Um, and, and fortunately, these people have let me know what difference my helping has made for them. Um, I'm super happy and chuffed that I regularly get these kinds of messages about the differences the grief services that I offer have made for people, how it has turned their lives around, and how they now sleep and have peace in their heart and their bodies, and how they have, good relationships with their families again, because that will suffer as well, and how they can think again, because it matters. So, finally, please do not hesitate to get in touch. I am in the Care Connect system. I'm also out of it. It's not a prison. It's where I choose to be. And if you have questions, please feel free to reach out privately. You can send me an email if you want, if you're more comfortable doing that, or you can book a call. And I don't know, see if I can paste a link in the chat. I can't. Anyway, on my website, you can book a free call through Calendly. So just check out what works for you. I also help organizations train their HR and other staff in how to deal with grievers, or rather how to treat them right. And I have some grief policies if you'd like to have a copy. So if you wish to reach out, please do so. Book a free initial call, drop me a line. And thank you so much for wanting to attend. It matters to you. It matters to the people around you. So thank you. And that was that. What questions do you have? Because now we're on to the questions bit. I'm going to stop share my screen now.